Thank you. Thank you again. So it was brief but intense. I'm going to speak about Chennai, and my case studies is in a mega city of estimated population between 9 and 10 million inhabitants, which is on 2 rivers, which are supposedly seasonal rivers, one on the north and one on the south, but they became perennial thanks to the sewage discharge into the water of the rivers, and a third water body, which is a canal, the Buckingham Canal, which is going up to the north, up to Andhra Pradesh, and was built by the British. I will specifically focus on the southern of the 2 rivers, which is the Adyar River, for different reasons. First, because there is a big presence of sports club of colonial inspiration, because there are still sometimes empty, very big plots, because this river is not specifically seen as negative as the other one, which name is Cooum, and normally by metaphor, if you want to say sewage, you can say just Cooum. And this part of the city is hosting what remains of nature in town, thanks to the Theosophical Society, the 2 big campuses of universities, the Gindi National Park and the Golf Club. And in that side, we are witnessing some ongoing environment restoration projects. Just on this slide here, you have on the north shore, the Alvarpets neighborhood. And here you see some of the bigger plots that are still empty and how small they become when you start building semi-detached or collective houses. Knowing that Alvarpet is one of the most poached area in town, when the price of the square meters is 10 times higher than the average in town. My keywords in this idea of studying this experience is that there is a narrative globalized on river landscape that point out on its cultural interest, on the idea of sports and leisure activities, on the idea of promote a new city image through the river landscape, and as a place where you can easily apply sustainable development concept, wild nature, biodiversity, ecology, environment, whatever. My major reason for the choice is because we started observing that there are some wishes to revitalize this area, starting from the reinterpretation of the waterfront, attributing to it either a cultural heritage and religious value, either an environmental interest, and it all ends up with real estate developments. And the narrative always describes something you don't see. So we are mostly on symbolic actions, where you have the marketing of a new image of a town, where the quality of life will be kind of granted, and the existing pollution just made invisible. And when there is the staging of what remains of urban nature, which is promoted as a kind of element supposedly giving coherence to the city. The river is totally invisible. There's only one way to see the river, which is, if I can start the video, again, I cannot, yeah, which is through the MRTS train. And all the rivers are blocked physically and in terms of view, supposedly, or this is what the authority says, to impeach people from suicide, and also to impeach people to throw rubbish. And you still see cars stopping on the bridge, opening the boots, taking out big rubbish bins and just throwing into the water. So this is what you see from the MRTS. Not a lot of buildings on the southern shore, and on the northern shore where we are just arriving, some spontaneous neighborhoods or slums. So the only people who see the river are the people who are affected by the flood, which are mostly slum dwellers. So apart from the monsoon season, where the water is flowing out of the river and more or less everybody is seeing it, only during major floods you can really realize that there is a river in the city. And when you start speaking to people saying, what do you think of the river? Many of them say, which river? And just after 2015, when this enormous major flood happens, people just said, oh, okay, now I see what you meant when you said river. Everybody's normally considering it as a mostly sewage. There is then a shared negative appreciation of the river. This is a work done by the students. They were questioning what the people see, what the people think, what the people perceive of the river. And this is just a small example, but it's Azzurri Bay, which is a restaurant with a terrace view, but the terrace view only open in the evening. If you want to have lunch, you have to have it inside, because they think that the view of the river, which is an open view during the day, is something that is against their own interest, and they only want to open it at night when you just see some lights mirroring on the water and it's look like nice. Still, there is a kind of promotion of the view. Many neighborhoods are called Riverview, Riviera, this kind of thing. So you don't really see why everybody is just saying, how, very awful place, but then promoting Riverview, which is, of course, not visible at all. Then there is another kind of population which is very attached to the river. And these are rowing people, which are belonging to the boat club, Madras club, alumni club, golf club, and they are on the river. And so they developed really an attachment to the river. And well, of course, the pictures look nice, but you don't have the smell, and you don't see that the water is just a kind of muddy, slimy things. But all these people are reivindicating that river must become a place where you can restore environment and biodiversity. And Karine Auchard, she finished a PhD, was following two associations. One, which is highlighting culture and heritage and spirituality. I don't say religious, because there are no specific place of religion. There are no material temple, but a lot of intangible places, very diffused in Hinduism, where you can stop in a place and pray, even if there are no material witnesses. And this group is called Cooum, a cultural mapping, and another one which is highlighting environment, and it is called Clean Adyar Initiative. And of course, what they are doing could be complementary, but in the real life is conflicting. We started with a list of all the influence of this kind of waterfront redevelopment project in India, where we all find the same recurrent keywords: economic growth, historic culture and religion, scenic beauty, landscape-based, etc. The media always promote a kind of idyllic view of the past, of what the river was, and never speaking about what it has become. The authorities put in place some projects which are based on transforming this part of the delta into a dry tropical evergreen garden, whatever it means, which is, of course, closed, only open on booking, and where you have to pay, so only open for the higher class, and where along this park, a lot of new, wealthy neighborhoods are being built, and from these neighborhoods you can see this park, but also this fisherman village, which is considered as a slums, so they are trying to get them evicted for this idea of beautification. At the same time, you see some circulating, some dream projects which are promoting this kind of very globalized idea of what the waterfront could become, and it already started along the Adyar, where the authorities cut down all the trees of a park because it was in the idea of beautification and having a pedestrian sides, a pedestrian path totally not shade. And at the same time, you see real development promoting what they call world-class urban waterfront, where you have this kind of building which are overlooking this nice landscape with all windows that you cannot open and always in AC, so you are sure that you don't get the smell, and if in case the river is recovered in the future, it will be on the right side, and where the ads speaks about new landmarks, the view you don't want to miss, all this kind of marketing. To find a place for these places, they have to free some space along the river, for example, removing this Dobie neighborhood, And here is how you find these big plots to new real estate development. And there are a lot of different slums along the river which are in threat of this eviction to build what already I showed. So to conclude, along the Adyar in Chennai, we assist to a complex situation where on the same space that were far enough from the hyper-dense inner city to remain less built up, different perceptions and narratives are taking place on a space totally to be constructed in terms of representation. These narratives that can be complementary but also conflicting are the one of rowers and environmental activists, the one of cultural activists, the one of slum dwellers suffering from being exposed to flood risk, accused to be the polluters and under threats of eviction. The one of those stakeholders that already understood that the river landscape is the new frontier of the symbolic as well of spatial progression of the city and of the exploitation of its image. Planning authorities, in a way, wealthiest elite, and definitely real estate developers.